Power comes in many forms. There are people who have power from their position, individuals that have taken thrones or leadership roles that allow them to call the shots, control the laws, and bask in the respect that comes with their position. There are people who have power from their insane wealth, giving them the ability to buy things beyond our wildest dreams. And then there are the fortunate few who are powerful because they have both of those things, positions of leadership and record-breaking fortunes. Plop down on your throne and use your jester as a footstool, because today we're going to take a look at the 4 richest world leaders. We'll look at their fortune, what they've bought with it, and what they've done with their position of power. Number 4. Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan, $18 billion. It's no secret that the rulers of many Middle Eastern countries have more money than they know what to do with. That's what happens when you have an economy built on millions of gallons of oil. That being said, there are a few leaders in the Middle East that are richer than most. The president of the UAE, who also happens to be the Emir of Abu Dhabi, has a fortune that is estimated to be around $18 billion. His name is Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan, or Sheikh Khalifa, as he's more commonly known. In addition to being the president of the UAE and the Emir of Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Khalifa is also the supreme commander of the UAE Armed Forces, the chairman of Supreme Petroleum Council, and the chairman of Abu Dhabi Investment Authority. When you hear those last two positions, you should hear dollar signs. Abu Dhabi Investment Authority manages $875 million in assets, and the Supreme Petroleum Council controls 97.8 billion barrels of oil reserves. So, it's no wonder how Sheikh Khalifa has managed to amass such a fortune, and that's not including the finances that have been passed down through his family for generations. In total, his whole family is estimated to hold around $150 billion, which is just under half the GDP of the United Arab Emirates. Sheikh Khalifa took the throne in 2004, but he's been immensely wealthy his entire life. His father was the emir before him, so he was raised with all the comforts that come along with the position. He was educated in wonderful schools, lived in palaces, and took on political roles from a young age. From the Prime Minister of the UAE, to the Minister of Defense, to the Minister of Finance, Sheikh Khalifa has always had a high-paying career, and throughout all of those roles, he's taken to buying whatever he pleases. In recent years, he's been accused of reckless extravagance, and as we take a look at the properties he owns, I have a feeling you might see why. Sheikh Khalifa was exposed in the Panama Papers as the owner of luxury properties in London, totaling up to $1.7 billion. It's estimated that in London alone, he owns 140 properties, ranging from bars to mansions and buildings of historical significance. And then there are the other mansions he owns. Perhaps the most insane example of his wealth can be found in his palace in Spain. Where in Spain, you might ask? Well, be sure you don't ask Sheikh Khalifa, because he has no idea. He's never even been to the mansion. In fact, the mansion went 17 years without having a single visitor. The kitchen appliances are still wrapped in the manufacturer's tape and plastic wrap. The master bed has never been slept in. Despite this, the property has a full-time staff of 15 people. They wash the sheets no one has ever slept in weekly and wash the clean, unused towels that are monogrammed with the Sheikh's initials. The last visitor to the property was the Sheikh's son, who arrived and said the property was too quiet and left without sleeping overnight. It's estimated that paying for the staff and keeping the property maintained costs a staggering $450,000 per year. Then there's his Ascot Palace located in France, which is valued at $60 million, set on 400 acres of parkland, with a lake and additional cottages for guests. The property is rarely used by the Sheikh. It has one particularly insane addition that just speaks to his wealth. The water tanks on the property were filled with Evian mineral water because the Sheikh didn't like the taste of the local water. At least he didn't spring for Fiji, I suppose. Other palaces include Ham Estate, a £5 million property in southwest London. After he purchased this property, he decided the mansion was too small to house his staff and security. He tried to purchase the nearby property so he could expand his home, but the neighbors refused to sell. So he just doesn't use the £5 million home any longer. But wait, we're not done yet. In 1995, he bought 66 acres of land in Seychelles to build a 7-story mansion. mansion. After completing the impressive mansion, it was revealed that the construction caused mass pollution of the local water supply. To deal with that inconvenience, the Sheikh gave the community $100 million to aid the cleanup. On top of all those incredible properties, he owns at least $30 million worth of properties in Cannes, France, and dozens of other residences throughout Europe. Then, there's his list of vehicles, which includes a $600 million super yacht called Azam. Azam is the second longest yacht in the world, spanning 590 feet in length. Not only did this beast of a ship cost $600 million, it also reportedly costs $48 million a year to maintain. He also owns a Boeing 747 and another 737, which his staff of over 100 people can fly on. It seems Sheikh Khalifa knows how to travel in style. Number 3. Hassan al-Bolkiah, $20 billion. The Sultan of Brunei, Hassan al-Bolkiah, has an impressive claim to fame. He has a fortune of $20 billion, $7 billion more than the total GDP of his country. In addition to that, he is one of the last absolute monarchs, serving as both the Sultan and the Prime Minister of his small country. His family has ruled Brunei for decades. He's currently the 29th member of his family to serve as the Sultan, having taken the throne way back in 1967. That also makes him the second longest reigning monarch in the world, and his reign has been one full of controversy, absurd spending, and illegal activities. Recently, he made the news for instituting new laws that made homosexuality and adultery punishable with death by stoning, a rule that rightfully created a ripple of outrage across the world, especially since the Sultan and his brother, the Prince, are known adulterers, having reportedly controlled a harem of 40 women at a time that were kept in less than luxurious conditions. For having such strict rules and Sharia laws, the Sultan and his family have lived a life that's incredibly flashy. His brother was caught embezzling $16 billion, which resulted in the Sultan selling off the majority of his brother's assets. This included a yacht with an incredibly interesting name. The ferries that brought people to the yacht were named Nipple 1 and Nipple 2, if you're wondering what the name of the yacht was. Sultan Bolkiah and his brother are both known for partying and spending their wealth. They've been reported spending billions on casinos, clothes, and yachts in London. And back home, the Sultan's spending is even more ostentatious. He commissioned his own private zoo, which is home to 30 Bengal tigers, as well as dozens of other animals that are trained to do tricks for visiting world leaders. His home is a mind-boggling palace that is estimated to be worth $600 million. There are 1,778 rooms in the palace, and it's rumored the building is over 2.2 million square feet, which is about 50 acres. There are 57 bathrooms, 5 pools, 2 mosques, and a banquet hall with enough space for 5,000 wealthy guests. Naturally, the home is overflowing with marble from Italy and silk from China. The carpets have gold woven into them, and the walls are adorned with paintings from Picasso and Monet, as well as a $70 million oil painting by Renoir. But perhaps the most well-known example of his wealth is his car collection, which is estimated to be worth $4 billion. He owns over 500 Rolls-Royce vehicles. During the 90s, over half of the Rolls-Royce cars were sold to the Sultan and his family alone. But Rolls-Royce isn't the only kind the Sultan fancies. Combined with his brother, he has a collection of over 5,000 cars, which includes 5 McLaren F1s and dozens of Ferraris. And if he needs to take to the sky rather than the roads, the Sultan can take his $520 million 747, which is fitted with solid gold wash basins and a sleek wood interior. It's known this guy liked to party when he was younger, and that hasn't stopped him in recent years. For his 50th year as ruler, he had a fortnight of celebrations. One of the parties he held cost $26 million, and he even paid Michael Jackson $14 million to perform 3 shows for his private guests. Ramar X, $30 billion. When you think of rulers with money, a king probably comes to mind, so it shouldn't come as too much of a surprise that the second wealthiest person on our list is Ramar X, the king of Thailand. His net worth is estimated to be around $30 billion. As a monarch, wealth has run in his family for decades. He is the 10th monarch of his family, hence him being known as Ramar X. He took over the throne back in 2016 after the passing of his father. When he took over, the family's money and assets were all signed over to him when Crown Property Bureau, which controls all the royal wealth, was merged with his own personal assets. He also took control of Siam Commercial Bank, as well as the properties owned by Crown Property Bureau, which totals to be about 40,000 rental contracts worldwide. Ramar X served in the Thai army after attending school all over the world. At the age of 20, he took his spot on the throne as the Crown Prince. Since coming to power as king, he's been known for being secretive and eccentric. After his poodle passed away, he threw a 4-day funeral that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. For his coronation, the procession lasted 6.5 hours and cost $31 million. Though he is the king of Thailand, he rarely speaks to the public or press, and he's rarely even in Thailand. He has a mansion in Bavaria that he calls home, and he travels back and forth on his privately owned Boeing 747. By my records, that seems to be the preferred plane of most royals. And in addition to the properties he owns, Ramar X has gems and jewels that have been passed throughout his family for generations, including the Golden Jubilee Diamond, a 545.67 carat diamond worth $12 million. Ooh, I've got goosebumps. Number 1. Vladimir Putin. Get out a shot of vodka and maybe wrestle a bear or something, because it's time to talk about the world's wealthiest leader. Vladimir Putin, a man who was a member of the KGB, is a black belt in judo and has been accused of poisoning at least 2 people. Truly, no one knows how wealthy Vladimir Putin really is, largely because of the corrupt and secretive ways Putin is alleged to manage his money. It's been estimated that his fortune is somewhere around $200 billion, most of which is rooted in corruption, illegal use of government funds, and a network of offshore bank accounts. But come on, can this guy be that bad? Well, fortunately for me, it's not my job to answer that question. It's my job to talk about the money he's alleged to have and all the stuff he's spent it on. As you probably know, Putin is the Prime Minister of Russia and has been since way back in 1999. And since he became Prime Minister, he's been living a life of luxury. It's rumored that Putin owns a $1 billion palace in Russia. Putin has been spotted at the property, though the government strongly denies that the home is actually his. The palace has ornate courtyards, a private church, 3 helipads, and a massive outdoor amphitheater. Putin has also been linked to 15 different homes around the world through offshore accounts, many of which have bowling alleys, indoor pools, and massive theaters inside of them. He's been spotted partying on a $1.2 billion private yacht and is estimated to own at least 15 private jets. One of the jets is even said to have a solid gold toilet in it that costs $60,000. Of course, there's no way we can definitely prove that these homes, private jets, and gold toilets belong to Putin. That's the whole point of having allies in offshore accounts. We can, however, take a look at the clothes he wears to get an idea of how much wealth he can just throw around. In his time as ruler, he's been spotted wearing $700,000 worth of luxury watches, often wearing a new one every week. He owns a Patek Philippe perpetual calendar watch that is valued at $140,000. And if you'd like a more in-depth look at Vladimir Putin's wealth, make sure to check out my video on that here. So, there you have it, the 4 wealthiest world leaders. What do you think of how they've spent their wealth? And how do you think they should spend it in the future? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. And maybe check me out on Instagram. I'm Mr. Luxury. Now, if you don't mind me, I think that's the kettle whistling. Pip pip to doodly-doo.